Welcome back, America. Our next guest made history a few years ago by taking on the VA and winning on behalf of her hero husband. And she is now on the cusp of making history again, this time turning traditional blue state Washington into a Republican victory in November for the U.S. Senate seat. Joining us right now is Tiffany Smiley. Tiffany, great to have you back on the show.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
It is an amazing story, what you've been able to do, starting a decade ago and all the way up into the present. But for people who haven't heard that story, tell us a little bit about what you did to get your husband the care he needed at the VA.
Yes, at 23 years old, I quit my nursing job in Washington State and took a one-way flight out to Walter Reed Army Medical Center to meet my husband. And I didn't know if I was going to meet him dead or alive, but I was going to be there. And when I walked into his trauma care unit, I had student loan debt and a car payment. Scotty had tubes coming out of every orifice of his body. He was in a coma. And one thing was certain, the suicide bomber that he was negotiating with in service to our country in Mosul, Iraq, had detonated his car, and the shrapnel from that detonation completely obliterated both of Scotty's eyes. He would be forever blind. It was the first time that I faced the large bureaucratic government systems. And thank goodness I was a nurse. I wasn't intimidated by the medical system. In fact, I knew how to stand up and advocate and truly fight for Scotty's life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. I had this wild, crazy idea that I could help him make a miraculous recovery and that he could still serve and have purpose and be an incredible asset to our United States Army. And so I refused to sign their paperwork and built a coalition who believed in this idea as well. We took on the Army, and Scotty went on and became the first blind active duty officer to ever serve our country. And once he was well, I went back and worked hard to make it right for everyone else. I took on VA reform. I took another flight out to Washington, D.C., but the next time I walked into the White House, where I worked with the President of the United States of America. I worked with senators, congressmen, and women, the Secretary of the VA to really pass meaningful reform that directly helps veterans and their families. So for our family, this is a continuation of service. This is country over party. We will always stand up and fight for Washington State and for this country and for true servant leadership within our government.
Yeah, and it's so funny. A lot of Americans will say, oh, that big government of Washington, I've just given up on that. But you prove that you can make a difference. How much does that translate, as you're now out in the campaign, running for U.S. Senate seat in Washington State, how much does that translate to voters when they know you actually made something better in government?
Yeah, it's very relatable, too. You know, there's a lot of people in Washington State who are suffering and they feel down and out and pushed around by this government system that's sort of like encroaching on them and affecting their daily lives. You know, I always say bad policy affects people. And so our story's relatable. People understand, they see hope in it. They know that we're offering a solution. We're offering an opportunity to turn crisis into hope for all of Washington. And so we've just been addressing the issues that Washington families are facing, from rising inflation, crime, skyrocketing crime, a fentanyl crisis. We have an education crisis. So, I haven't just, I took on big government and won. And my opponent, Senator Murray, she is big government. She's not engaged with the people in Washington State. In fact, they've said, we never hear from her. She's never around. The first time we heard from her in a very long time was when she came out attacking you, Tiffany, in June. So Washington State is ready to send a leader who will go fight and deliver results for Washington State.
It's so amazing because when this race started, Patty Murray was in the safe category, been in the Senate for decades, safe. Then it moved to lean blue. Then it moved to toss-up. Now it's a dead heat. As you get out there, one of the things you've done almost daily, you stay engaged at the grassroots level. Every day you're meeting voters. You're tangible and available to them. How big a difference is that for a candidate to be able to have all that face time with real voters?
I think it makes a huge difference because, people are facing extreme crisis and they want to know that their elected leaders understand what they're going through. I've been at this for 18 months. I've been in all 39 counties across Washington State. We've built coalitions all across Washington State who are ready for change. And so that message is resonating all over the state. Every day we're engaging, whether it's veterans or suburban moms, different groups all all over Washington state are small business owners. I've even visited and spent time in homeless encampments. I want to listen to those people that live there and understand how we help them. It's clear we don't have a money problem in this country. We have a solutions problem. And so I am excited to get to work, to be able to have Washington State send me to Washington, D.C. to start to deliver results and move forward in a positive way. A lot of people have lost faith in the political system, and rightfully so, because, Senator Murray hasn't delivered positive results for Washington State. And they're ready for change. And that's exactly what we will deliver. We're going to push hard. I'm going to be out on the trail all the way through election. I'm going to be hitting 46 different stops between now and November 8th, engaging with as many voters as we can and sharing our plan to turn crisis into hope.
Amazing. And you talked a lot about solutions. This is, I've covered a lot of elections over 40 years. This is by far the most substantive Republican platform I've seen in a congressional midterm, maybe since 1994, Newt Gingrich Revolution. You've got Commitment with America in the House, but on the Senate side too, you've got candidates talking about issues that they used to be yielding to Democrats: climate change, homelessness, inflation. How important is it to be able to engage in a blue state with blue voters on the subjects that Democrats used to dominate, and now you have a Republican prescription for it?
Yeah, it's incredibly powerful. When I was at the homeless encampment helping clean up, there was another woman there helping clean up as well. And she saw me from across the encampment, and she said, "Tiffany Smiley." And I kind of laughed like, yes, I'm a really nice person. I don't know what attack ad you're watching. Here I am in the heart of Seattle. But she said, no, I'm honored to meet you. She said, I've always voted Democrat. I've always voted for Senator Murray. This year, I'm honored to vote for you. And it was really this moment where it wasn't Democrat or Republican. It was American. It was an American issue where we were coming together. We were wanting to do what's best for our state, for the city of Seattle, for these people who our current politicians are allowing to poison themselves to death. And we were there as citizens who want better, who want to move forward. And so when we talk about, the climate, of course, I grew up on a farm. There's no better stewards of the land than farmers. And I believe in protecting our environment. And I make it clear, the contrast between me and Senator Murray is very clear. She would rather give our energy to enemy countries that hate us, who have no environmental standards. So we need to unleash our American energy independence and do it here where we do it best. We can do it clean and appropriate, but we have to rein in these gas prices. So my plan calls for, in the short term, unleashing our natural gas and oil to decrease gas prices. And in the long term, continue to build the all of above energy approach. Good intentions aren't enough for policy. It needs to equal results.
Yeah, that's what Americans want. They've heard plenty of promises over 2 or 3 decades. They want results. We've got about a minute left, Tiffany. You talk a lot about crime. Seattle's sort of that liberal utopia. All the policies that Democrats have said would work, they've tried in Seattle, and yet it seems to be so dysfunctional all the time. How important is Seattle as a symbol to the rest of the state that, hey, maybe the Democrats have taken us down a bad path?
Yeah, it is clear that they have. I mean, Seattle had the highest homicide rates just last month. They've declared a public health emergency for the fentanyl crisis with no plan and no hope in sight. So my plan addresses this. I look forward to, backing our law enforcement. I'm honored to be endorsed by WAC cops and the Fraternal Order of Police. They're behind me all the way at the federal level, ensuring that we're offering grants, $5,000 retention and recruiting bonuses so we can get good cops here. We're clearly understaffed, and enforce the laws on the books. Senator Murray went on the Senate floor June of 2020. She called for funds to be diverted away from our police force, and then she disappeared and she went into hiding. And in fact, she comes back and acts like there's no crime here, which is just simply not true. We need to solve this issue. I met with a lady just a couple weeks ago who was walking to lunch in Seattle, violently assaulted, just walking to lunch in the middle of the day. And after she fought off her attacker, she looked around and someone said, well, don't call 911 because nothing will happen. So we have a lot of work to do. Number one, I think we have to stop this rhetoric. This defund the police rhetoric has been extremely harmful to Seattle and all over Washington state. Yeah. So we need to back our police officers, our cops, ensure that we're recruiting and retaining good police officers. And we need to secure our border. We have got to stop the flow of fentanyl from coming across our southern border, ensure that we keep Title 42 in place until we have a plan to secure it. There's a lot of work to do, and I can't wait to get back to Washington, D.C. and get to work.
Now, one thing's for sure. Right now, maybe you call 911, it may not work. Right now, you call Washington, it may not work. But if you get in the Senate, I have a funny feeling both are going to work a lot better. People at the VA know that. Tiffany Smiley, what an honor to have you on the show. Have a great final 2 weeks of your campaign.
Thank you.
Great to have you on. All right, folks, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this commercial break.